Welcome to The Wayward Widow. My name is Poet. If you're new here, welcome. I'm just going to start out by saying he didn't want to die. Got my coffee. I'm talking about Sky, of course. He was my partner of 13 and a half years. His death certificate said he died of a disease called MSA, multiple system atrophy. I just want to tell you his story, what the experience was, and I'll keep it in a nutshell as much as I can. He was working at Lowe's in the electrical department, and towards the end of 2019, he developed a tremor in his right hand pinky, and we chalked it up to anxiety. And he started telling me that he was losing his balance. He would walk down the aisle and he would kind of drift over this way or drift over this way. His blood pressure would drop when he would stoop down and then stand up, even when he moved slowly. By the end of 2020, because Lowe's was an essential business, he needed to go to work, and he did get the month of March off because he was a high risk, being a senior citizen. And the end of November 2020, he contracted COVID. I took him to a remote testing center, and someone came out in full PPEs and tested him along with a whole bunch of other people in the car. They were going car to car. And it took 5 days for results. He tested positive, and he looked at me and he said, "I'm going to die." And he was taken care of here. I was taking care of him here. I wore no mask. I wore no gloves. I worked in a hospital for more than 10 years, and hand washing is key for me. So he never had trouble breathing. He had a little bit of a cough, which is why he initially stayed home from work at the end of February, because he developed a little cough. It was like he had a really bad flu. And by Wednesday, when we got the results, he was feeling better. He never needed to be hospitalized, and he was feeling better, but he was really weak, and he was having trouble with his balance. We got through January and half of February. He was not able to work. All of December, January, half of February 2021, he couldn't go back to work. We went to a PT eval. They recommended he not go back to work, but he used all his vacation, all his time off. He had no more time off. And his doctor said, you do what you need to do. And so he went back to work the day after Valentine's Day 2021. And he made it through the rest of February, and then into early March. He made it all of March, and then early April, we scheduled him for a COVID, the jab. He got the jab. He drove from work to the place where they were giving the jab. He got it. He drove back to work. He finished his work day, and the next day, I drove him into work. He said he was feeling okay enough, but not great. And that afternoon, everything fell apart. He couldn't remember time or place, and he was really confused and disoriented. I got him from work. He was in the parking lot. Some Good Samaritans helped us. The police showed up here to do a welfare check on him, and he gave his resignation that next day in April, early April. So that was the last day that he was able to work of 2021. And he just went downhill from there. Trouble walking, trouble with memory. This was over time. This was through 2021, 2022. We went to a neurologist twice. His PCP said he thought it was long haulers. He was having trouble swallowing. He was having trouble with his vision, with his speech. It was like one system after another would slowly shut down. And through it all, he would try to walk. Like, I bought walking sticks, 2 of them. I got a walker, a standard walker. I got a rollator walker. I got a wheelchair finally, so that I could take him out and get him into the stores. And he was very weak and very shaky. And by October 2023, we already at that point had a hospital bed in. We brought a hospital bed in September of 2023, I believe it was. We were going to put him on palliative care. The PA from palliative care said basically what she would do once a month is the same thing that I could do here, which is check his vitals, because I had all of the equipment to check his vitals. I was a CNA at our local hospital in the intensive care unit, the surgical intensive care unit, for over 10 years. So I had everything here. And she said, really, you can do what I'm doing. And his doctor was prescribing his medications. He had a reflux med, he had an anxiety med, and a couple other medications that he was on, a stool softener, a powder to help him go to the bathroom that I would mix in with his food. He would get angry. He would go through dementia phases, but he would continue to try to get up and walk. I would walk with him. I would get him outside as often as I could, but we live in a second floor apartment. The steps became a problem. The maintenance man came over, the manager put up safety bars in the bathroom, put safety rails in the stairwell to go downstairs to be able to get out to the car. They added a second railing. He put reflective tape on the bottom step of our staircase so that Sky could tell where the last step was. He would have to go down the steps backwards with me behind him, with my hands on his back, guiding him down the stairs. It was really bad, and it was really difficult, and he knew that his body was breaking down. By May of 2023, I could no longer get him to the doctor, so we did a once-a-month telephone call, not telehealth, just telephone, put him on speaker, and we would go over the changes. I needed at that point to get Depends and pads for on the bed. And by the end of the year, I was feeding him, and he was sleeping a lot, and it was bad. It wasn't his fault. He did nothing wrong. He didn't want to die. He wasn't afraid to die. He's a Buddhist. It's rebirth. There's no death. And he was a devout Buddhist of 40 years. And it wasn't his fault. He did nothing wrong. He was living his life the best he could. And I was being the best care partner that I could be. A lot of times the term caregiver is used. I was his 24/7 caregiver. We were not married at that time, but we were together, and he was my best friend, and he was my companion, and so I like to use the term care partner as opposed to caregiver. And I actually got that from Bruce Willis's wife. She refers to herself as a care partner. When I think of Sky's illness and his death, he did nothing wrong. It wasn't his fault. As he got worse, internally he shut down each system. Externally, his bones got rigid, and it was almost impossible to move him. I would turn him in the hospital bed. He would grab a hold of the railing. I would take his hand and hold the railing in, so that I could massage his back and put lotion on and clean him up and do all the things that needed to get done, get his sponge bath and brush his teeth, clean his glasses, wash his face, lotion him, elevate his feet, all those things. He worked hard to live. He wanted to live. He wasn't afraid to die. He just said no pain. Poet, no pain. We already had pre-planned his end of life, his passage to rebirth. He wanted to be cremated because that was the only choice that he really felt comfortable with, other than a green burial, which Pennsylvania wasn't acknowledging at that time. He is a nature-based person, so he just wanted to go into the woods. They just drag me in the woods and let the animals have at me and let me go back to nature. But we needed to do a cremation, and that was all set up. We had been to a lawyer. All the legal stuff was done. Like, everything was done a year before he passed. And he fought to live. He watched some TV. He got as interested as he could in some shows. He slept a lot, though. And him and I would have talks when we could. I would sit with them. And so he was he was scared to leave me. He said, "I'm not afraid to go, but I don't want to leave you." And in my head, I was like, oh, we've got a lot of time. The doctor in October, at the end of October, gave him 6 months or less. And I don't know if that was because the doctor really felt it would be 6 months or less, or if it was to be approved for hospice. 5 days before Sky passed away into rebirth, hospice came on board finally, and that was quite an ordeal. We had them in twice for evals, and he was turned down because he was eating 2 meals a day. He was having puddings and mashed potatoes, and their thing was he didn't qualify until he was basically comatose. He was put on Ativan and morphine, and it was a very peaceful passing into rebirth. He didn't struggle. He never cried out in pain. He wasn't, the last thing he said to me was, "I don't want to leave you." And but I want to stress that as our loved ones are passing and they're sick, it's not their fault. They're not asking for this. They don't want this. They don't want to be sick. Who wants to be sick? Who wants to go through this process? He's a good person. He studied folklore and mythology, and that's what he got his master's degree in at UCLA, folklore and mythology. What does that tell you? He was the best Buddhist. He was a Soto Zen Buddhist. He took Jakai. He went to Atlanta to the Zen Center and took Jakai, which is a public declaration of Buddhism. And his Buddhist name is Guju. He was very smart. He's a very smart man in this life, which tells me he's a very smart man in his current life. He told me, he said, I'm going to come back. I'm going to watch you. I'm going to make sure you're okay. I'm going to follow you around. Like, I'm going to be there for you. And with the things that have happened in my life in the last almost 12 weeks with me meeting someone new and the type of person I met, I swear Sky had everything to do with it. We met in 2010. The first thing he said to me was, it's good to see you again, even though we had never seen each other in person. And he said, I saw you in a previous life. And we were together for 4 years before we married, and we married in a Buddhist ceremony. We stayed married 1.5 years, and we divorced for an emotional reason for me and a financial reason for him. It was what we needed to do. But the bond between us, the conversations, the love, the caring, the taking care of was there. It wasn't perfect. We struggled hard at times. In the first 9 years of our 14 years, there was a lot of struggle. We both had been in really bad relationships, and there was a lot of, how do we do this, you know? But he was funny. He would come out with one-liners, like he didn't even need to think of it. He would just come out with a one-liner. He's missed incredibly. The holiday season is now upon us. We are in our third Burr month, you know, September, October, November. December, him and I always talked about the Burr months, BER, and the big four holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. He didn't celebrate Christmas. I did. Him and I celebrated winter solstice, summer solstice, and fall and spring. And he looked at life in a completely different way than most. And I did the same, and I do the same. I am not the norm. He was not the norm. And that's what kept us together. Our love was unconditional. Our commitment was unconditional. We were going to make it no matter what. I let him be weird and quirky, and he let me be weird and quirky. He sat meditation, which is Zazen. He sat Zazen, Zen, which is meditation. And he was just an all-around good person, very shy, very introverted, very quiet, a very quiet man. One of his sons both his sons are very quiet men. He's missed here on this planet on Earth. I miss him. And I thank him for what he taught me in our time together, and what I learned and what I can carry on in the relationship I'm in now. The man that I'm seeing now is so much like Sky in the way he looks at life, and the unconditional love. He accepts me for who I am, and I accept him for who he is. And there's a deep love developing between the two of us. A lot of conversation as to where this relationship is going, and it's going forward and onward and into the next stages. But if you're a care partner, or you've lost your significant other, your person, we know that it's not their fault. They didn't want this. There were times that Sky said, if you need to, put me in a nursing home. I'm tiny. I'm 5'2". Right now I weigh 95 or 96 pounds. At that time, I had lost so much weight, I was at 88. I was not eating well. I was not sleeping well. My hair was falling out. It was really difficult for me. I was doing a lot of therapy. He was talking to his sensei. I was talking to our sensei. And not that long ago, I talked with our sensei and I said, where is he? Where is Sky? And he said, he's where he's always been. And you'd have to kind of like be that Buddhist person to understand that. I'm really sorry about my swallowing. I apologize. I have difficulty swallowing because of the degree of anxiety that I have in my body that I'm working on. So sometimes I have to really just stop and think about swallowing. I want to give kudos, huge amounts of respect and love to care partners out there. Whether you are a current care partner or whether you have lost your person and you were a care partner, or whether you didn't have the opportunity, because I believe for me, being a care partner was a gift. Hard as it was, difficult as it was, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I wouldn't trade it for a second. He was home. He was in a place he knew with someone who cared about him and took really good care of him and loved him. So for those of you who do this and are doing it, for those of you who work in hospitals and nursing homes, who are part of hospice teams, whatever, palliative care, I want to say thank you, because to have the privilege of caring for this man as he went through to his next life was amazing. Thanksgiving is coming up, and I'm thankful. This is my first Thanksgiving without him. It will be my first winter solstice without him. And winter solstice will hit me harder than Thanksgiving or Christmas. Winter solstice was very important to Sky. Very important. And I'm just so grateful that I had that time with him, because he taught me so much. And he said, you know what? Just be you, poet. Just be you. And that's who I am in all of the weirdness, all the differentness, all the quirkiness, all the ways that I am not like most people my age, just people in general. I've always been over here doing things my way, the wayward way. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to say, it wasn't his fault when our loved ones get sick and they're in that transition. They did nothing wrong. They're not doing this. They're going through their thing. And so just love them, just love them. And in the process of loving them, remember to love yourself, because you're doing one hell of a job. So thank you for being here with me. There's more to come.